He's the mastermind of one of the biggest Ponzi schemes ever.
You might think it's magic, but it's actually real meat and potato stuff.
The scam artist ripping off more than $100 million.
He drove a fancy car, he dressed well, waterfront mansion, corporate jet.
Now the con man has disappeared.
I wouldn't be surprised if he was in Canada, Mexico, Central America.
Darren Berg's life of crime started as a frat boy at the University of Oregon.
We viewed him as the boy wonder.
The ambitious entrepreneur already owned his own business.
The rest of the undergraduate chapter elected him president of the fraternity at the same time that he continued to be treasurer of the fraternity.
Turns out Berg was taking checks written to the fraternity, endorsing them with his tour company stamp, and depositing around $21,000 straight into his charter bus account.
Darren's defense was that he had spent all of this money on behalf of the fraternity and he was merely reimbursing himself.
Berg escaped an indictment and disappeared until he resurfaced in Portland, Oregon and started up an advertising business. But Berg was up to his old tricks. This time, the U.S. attorney indicted him for stealing $19,000 from a Portland bank in a check-kiting scheme. Berg pleaded guilty, but ultimately dodged another bullet.
He ended up making some arrangement where he paid restitution and left town.
This time, with his eyes set on Seattle.
Darren Berg's mortgage company, Meridian Funds, was set up to collect money from investors and invest that money into mortgages. But instead of using the money to buy mortgages and invest, he was living lavishly off the money.
That is the textbook definition of a Ponzi scheme.
That just was the beginning of the end for Darren.
He was arrested for embezzling, but had stashed millions of dollars in exotic offshore accounts, filed for bankruptcy, and brokered a deal to help investigators unravel his crimes.
He always thought he could stay one step ahead of everybody, ahead of his investors, ahead of the bankruptcy court, ahead of the FBI.
So when Berg's time ran out and he pleaded guilty,
Darren Berg was charged with orchestrating Washington State's largest Ponzi scheme.
and was sentenced to 18 years for fleecing over 800 investors out of $140 million. Berg spent the next 6 years doing time at various minimum security federal prisons in California. Then, he disappeared. Berg hopped a prison fence that led to an airport, where U.S. Marshals say it's likely he boarded a private jet and started his new life as an international fugitive.
I have little doubt that he probably is someplace where it's warm and doesn't have an extradition treaty to the United States.
Berg is a wanted man. Investigators say he may have had help and named Berg's ex-boyfriend as a person of interest.
He's intelligent and cunning. There's no stopping to what he's capable of.